I'm not sure what it has been about the last week or two, but I've just thought about how imperfect life is. I mean, I think most of us want to carve out a path for ourselves that we have some modest amount of control of, whether that path is for ourselves or for our aging parents or for the kids that we take care of or for our nieces and nephews. And then every time I think I got my stuff together, something happens that turns your world upside down. And I think realizing that life is imperfect and that we don't have control over lots of things maybe gives us the freedom to face the uncertainties that are around us and not get swallowed up by them. You know, I continue to think about Ukraine. It just keeps me up at night so often thinking about what they're going through. I think of what Connie's going through, their grandson Gavin, who's been in the hospital, and he's getting a little bit better. I think of a funeral I had this week for a guy that just a few months ago was dancing like a goof at his daughter's wedding, and then all of a sudden he gets sick, and this week we had to say goodbye. And then, of course, I probably made the mistake of making the theme this week, Alzheimer's and dementia. That sure was really good news for a lot of you. But we've all gone through that with people that we love. The gospel for today is unusual because it's usually a gospel reading that we do during Holy Week with Jesus on the cross. And there's these two criminals, and the one criminal says to Jesus, hey, you know, if you're the Son of Man, then save us. That's who you are. And the other criminal says, wait a minute. We're here because we deserve to be here. This man has done nothing wrong. And then the criminal says to Jesus, please remember me when you come into your kingdom. And then Jesus says, today you are with me in paradise. And I think of those words, please remember me. So often with my grandparents or someone I love in my family, I look at them and I says, please remember me. And I'm not sure that they really do. But my guess is that when you or I cross the finish line, we want to be remembered. I mean, as important or unimportant as you may think your journey is, it would be nice when we leave this earth to leave something behind so that those who have loved us and those we have been with remember us. I was thinking maybe like 25 or 30 years from now, I'd like to peek down from heaven and see if my kids remember to do the eternal light in my memory. Maybe an altar flower or two in loving memory of their dad or their grandpa. But you never know. But to be remembered is probably one of the greatest gifts of all. I remember after my mom died, my grandmother moved into our family home with my dad. And I would go visit my grandmother, and she would sit there on her chair with her purse in her lap. And I would go visit her, and I would just sit there, and she'd just stare at me. And I would try to reminisce. I said, Grandma, remember those great Swedish pancakes you used to make, you know, Saturday morning when I stayed at your house? Remember that boiling pot of coffee? That Swedish coffee that just, the odor just took up your whole bungalow. And it was just such good stuff. Remember fishing in Lake Michigan with Grandpa? And she just looked at me. And then she'd say, have you seen my purse? And there it was, Grandma, it's right in your lap. Oh, I just didn't notice it there. And, you know, I don't understand how that kind of stuff works. I don't think any of us do. But I do know this, that in the middle of the imperfect world that we live in the middle of all the things that we understand and don't understand, that is precisely where God lives and gives us the strength to uphold the dignity of our journey and those that we love. I know I mentioned this before a couple times, but I really only have one thought a week, and so I have to mention it 2 or 3 times. But it was about a year ago that we had the love bucket for a couple that none of you knew. I did their wedding, and they had kind of a tough journey because she had a terminal heart condition. and they lived in a simple home in Markham, and I would go visit them, and she was pretty much bedridden, and he just made the decision that I'm just going to not work, I'm going to stay at home and take care of my wife, and that's what they did. Yeah. And it was a lot of sacrifice. And we had the love bucket, and I remember that day when I went over there and I gave him $500 in an envelope. And he called me later and said, boy, do we need that? But more important, just knowing that there's people that don't even know who they are, that cared about them. Well, this past Thursday, about a year later, we buried her ashes in the back 40, just right back there. And as we were leaving the scene, there were only about 9 people there walking back to the church. He reached in and pulled out a wad of money. And he says, Don, about a year ago, you gave us $500 when we needed it the most. He said, my wife is now at peace, and I take solace in that. And I'm going back to work on Monday, and I can't wait to do that. So here's $500. Now it's somebody else's turn to have that money to make a difference in their life. And I thought to myself, wow, what a God moment that was. After everybody had left, I kind of had my invisible conversation with Jesus. I said, Jesus, I know this guy probably is never going to come to church. So I said, Jesus, remember him when you come into your kingdom. And I could hear Jesus saying back to me, Don, remember, religion is not about going to church. Religion is being the church. And for a few moments on Thursday, a blue-collar cement truck driver, he was the church and made a difference in my life, and maybe your life too. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed.